In this video, we're going to talk about condors, these majestic, absolute giants of the sky. But there's a really tragic story here, one that brought a whole species right to the edge of disappearing forever. So we're going to explore who they are, how they live, and the incredible, incredible fight to bring them back. To really get a sense of a condor, you just have to appreciate their scale. I mean, look at this. They're some of the largest flying animals on the entire planet. Real masters of the air, who can just glide for hours on end, looking down on the world from thousands of feet up. So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about their incredible size in Giants of the Sky. Then we'll dive into their day-to-day in A Condor's Life, and their surprisingly complex social world in Vulture Culture. After that, we get to the really dramatic part, their conservation story in Brink of Extinction. And we'll wrap it all up with some mind-blowing, amazing condor facts. Alright, first things first, let's meet the family. You may think there are tons of different condors out there, but actually there are only two species, and they live in totally different parts of the world. So, you've got two main players. Over in South America, you have the Andean condor, a true icon of the Andes Mountains. And then, here in North America, we have the California condor, which is the biggest land bird on the continent. They look pretty similar, but the Andean condor usually has a slightly wider wingspan, making it one of the absolute largest flying birds on Earth by that measurement. But hey, don't let that slightly smaller thing fool you. The California condor is still unbelievably massive. We're talking an average wingspan of 9.5 feet. Just try to picture that for a second. That's wider than a king-size bed is long. And that giant wingspan, it's not just for looks. That lets them catch thermal updrafts and soar to, get this, 15,000 feet. That's higher than a lot of small airplanes fly. And they do it by barely even flopping their wings. It's just incredible. Okay, so we know they're huge, but what's a day in the life of a condor actually like? Let's get into their diet, their family life, and how they survive out there. Well, first and foremost, a condor is a type of vulture, and that means they're professional scavengers. You can think of them as nature's most essential cleanup crew. They feed on animals that have already died, which plays this super important role in keeping the whole ecosystem healthy and clean. So what's on the menu? We're talking big stuff. The carcasses of large animals, like deer, cattle, even whales and sea lions that wash up on the coast. And unlike some vultures that sniff out their meals, condors rely almost completely on their amazing eyesight to spot food from miles and miles away. And trust me, when a condor shows up to dinner, everybody else makes way. They are the top dog. Now, when it comes to family, condors are in it for the long haul. They mate for life and are super dedicated parents. But they take things really slow. They only lay one single egg every 1 to 2 years. Both mom and dad share all the work, and the chick can actually stick around with its parents for up to 2 whole years just learning how to be a condor. And that long parenthood style kind of hints at something deeper, a really complex social world. A lot of people think of vultures as these lonely, solitary birds, but with condors, that couldn't be more wrong. Turns out, condors are very social. When they hang out in groups, there's a very clear social ladder, a pecking order, to keep things from getting chaotic. The studies show this hierarchy is all based on your age and your gender. It decides who eats first, who gets the best spot to sleep, everything. And this is where the older, wiser birds come in. The young ones have to learn all these social rules. In conservation programs, they actually use older condors as mentors to teach the new generation how to deal with the more dominant, pushy birds. It's a skill that is absolutely essential for them to survive out in the wild. And boy, were those survival skills put to the test. Now we're getting into what is probably the most intense chapter of the California condor story, its brush with total extinction. This is where the story gets really, really dark. After years and years of their numbers dropping, by 1987, the entire world population of California condors came down to this one number. 22. Just let that sink in for a second. 22 birds left in the entire world. The species was literally staring extinction right in the face. So how did it get that bad? Well, the threats were pretty much all caused by humans. But one danger was way, way better than all the others. Of all the condor deaths where they could figure out the cause, almost half, a whopping 49%, was from lead poisoning. This usually happens when they eat tiny fragments of lead bullets left in animal carcasses. So, with extinction knocking at the door, conservationists made this incredibly bold and pretty controversial decision. In 1987, they captured every single one of the last wild condors to start a captive breeding program. It was a massive gamble, but it was the only shot they had. The very next year, the first chick hatched in captivity, and by 1992, they were ready. They released the first two birds back into the wild. And the result of that huge effort? Well, it's been nothing short of amazing. From just those last 22 birds, the population has been climbing ever since. You can see here how both the total population and, more importantly, the wild population have grown so much. It's truly one of the greatest conservation success stories ever. Okay, now that we've been through that incredible comeback story, let's finish up with a few more just awesome facts that really make these birds one of a kind. Have you ever wondered why they have that bald head? It's not about fashion, it's all about hygiene. When you're sticking your head inside a carcass, not having feathers there helps keep you way cleaner. Plus, when they're soaring up high, the sun's UV rays actually help sterilize their bare skin. Pretty smart, right? These birds also live for an incredibly long time. A California condor can live for over 60 years in the wild. And get this, the oldest known condor ever, an Andean condor that was in a zoo, lived to be 100 years old. And finally, this one just blows my mind. Their skill in the air is just unreal. Researchers once tracked an Andean condor that flew for over 100 miles, and it didn't slap its wings one time. Not once. It just soared for over 5 hours. That's efficiency. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important question. After this amazing, hard-fought comeback from only 22 birds, what is the single biggest threat they still face out in the wild today? It's the exact same thing that almost wiped them out to begin with: lead poisoning. Alright, that is it for this video, everyone. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video.